afternoon.
Welcome to the Marketing Trench. We are live. Guys,
Are we though? Are we though?
Can I just say, first of all, this is nice because I think, I mean, you two have been away. It's been conference season, traveling season. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm just going to say, I have been here. But you two have been out. So the three of us together, I mean, this has been a rare sight the last few months.
Is this your Thanksgiving monologue? You're saying that you're grateful for us being here with you.
I am. From the bottom of my heart, I'm so happy you two are in my life.
Well, Dustin, just so that you know, we're glad that you're glad that we're here.
There you go.
This isn't water.
It is Friday.
It's Friday.
Amazing.
So we're approaching the holiday season, and today's topic is 2021 in review. We're doing this a bit early because we've got some good guests lined up to round out the end of the year, and we're going to be talking about our thoughts for 2022 in another episode. But we wanted to look back on lessons learned, wins we've had, even some losses we've had potentially, and just kind of do a recap of what we've done the past year. Hopefully, if you haven't had an opportunity to listen to every one of our episodes, which I'm sure you faithful listeners, you have never missed an episode, but perhaps you might hear something in the recap today that'll make you think, oh yeah, that's actually, I should go back and listen to that one. So that's what we're up to today. And I guess the best place to lead off would be to just throw out the first question, which would be, what do you think was the biggest lesson you learned in 2021? This is, and I'm going to be selfish because this is the one I'm most interested in hearing about from you guys.
This is a hard one because I always forget what we talked about.
Well, I mean, it doesn't even have to be stuff we discussed on the podcast.
Business.
Just
Well, all right, Ricardo. I'll let you think here for a second because I was actually thinking about this a little bit, and I don't know if this is directly relevant to anything that we specifically talked about, but I think this is an important thing that comes up in people's business, and I don't know. I'm going to pat myself on the back a little bit during this, just because. So the biggest thing that I learned is that you have to have flexibility, and that your plans, you can plan to start something, but you should never assume that it's everything that you planned is going to be perfect.
Yeah.
So we launched our publishing platform on findmywayhome.com. We got a small group of what we called founding members, and they're all loan officers, and our mission is to help other professionals in our industry be found on Google and YouTube by helping them publish content, getting the years of experience and expertise out of their head, producing video, transcribing it, and getting it out there. So it was a big pivot from the website that I started 13 years ago, the WordPress website. So there was a lot of moving parts. We knew it was going to be challenging. I think we were very successful in simplifying the experience for our customer, and you can translate, customer into anything, the consumer, the home buyer, the home seller, whatever. So our goal as business owners is to simplify that experience for our end user so that all they're having is a crafted experience that allows them to hopefully enjoy the journey and not have a lot of doubt and questions creep in during the process. Escrow opened and then I haven't heard from my loan officer in 10 days. Is that a bad sign? That kind of thing.
Is that a bad sign?
Yeah. That
is, she goes, boys.
So we launched at the end of May, and I watched very carefully and made an observation that what we were doing on the back end and our tech stack, and I would say primarily most of our tech stack, was not doing everything that we wanted it to do. And so we're in the process of pivoting and getting that pivot done and swapping out some of the major pieces of our tech stack without interrupting our deliverable to to the consumer, to the end user. And, I've got a great team around me, and, we learned a lot of lessons, and there were a couple of things that were very, very difficult about the observation and the execution. And first of all, the observation is I was mostly responsible for saying, hey, let's use these technologies to accomplish what we want to accomplish. So part of it was putting my ego aside and realizing that this is probably not, that wasn't the right decision. I don't regret it because it helped us learn that it wasn't the right decision and that there might be a better way. But then, having to explain, or having to have that conversation then with my other business partners and how I approached that. And I royally screwed it up. Like I didn't think it out well. I didn't have it all the way thought out. I didn't have a plan. And I think as business owners, this happens a lot, especially on the tail end of the NAR conference and the Inman conference, right? We go to these conferences, we see things, we meet people, and we're like, this is something I really want to implement in my business. And you go to your team and you're like, as the owner or whatever, you're like, oh my gosh, we found all these new things. And I know you've been training on this CRM for the last year, but I met Ricardo Bueno and Follow Up Boss is the bomb. We're going to go with that. And then the team's just like, holy shit, this is going to be a nightmare. Right.
Yeah.
But having the, and this is where it wasn't easy. It was very difficult. It was emotionally challenging. I handled it the wrong way, but I did it anyhow, and I got through it. And we're making some major improvements in our business to help make doing business moving forward easier and better. And it's going to bring down our cost basis, and it's going to simplify the resources and everything that we need to do on the back end to make everything run smoothly. And that was probably my biggest lesson. I hadn't really been in that position in a long time, but it's always something that I've been kind of good at, is recognizing when something doesn't work and having the courage to make the change or make the improvement, but then stumbling over yourself and doing it the wrong way, taking a step back, thinking it out, mapping it out, communicating it properly, and then executing that. So, that was a really, really big lesson for me in 2021. And I think as business owners, one of the hardest things to do is to change, especially when you're making improvements on something that already is working, but it would be better. So that was my big one. That was my big lesson. And I definitely stumbled over myself and made a lot of mistakes. I didn't do a perfect job of it. But I took a step back, communicated it to my team, mapped it out, thought it out, and then we're executing on it now. And it's going to put us in a lot better position for 2021.
That's awesome.
That's mine.
Yeah. I've been there so many times.
Yeah.
And it's so painful too, because when you know that lesson. But
you knew last time. You knew when
you
knew last time that when you were doing the thing that you are getting ready to change.
Yeah. And then of course, when it hits you again, you're like, oh crap, I relearned a lesson I knew full well. But it's important because at least you got to that point of being able to make the pivot and of being able to work through the change.
Yeah, and the strategy wasn't wrong. Some of the tools to execute the strategy weren't as good or easy to use as they could have been.
Yeah.
So the vision is still there, and we all have this vision of what we want the customer experience to be, what we want our employees' experience to be. And we do the best we can, especially in my business as brokers in the mortgage industry. We have to Frankenstein all of our tech together. And we've got, that happens with agents too. I mean, you go to these big conferences and there's 300 shiny objects in the exhibition hall, and they all look fantastic. And
Is that all?
And they're all, and what is it that we said before? They're all out there trying to sell you
Easy button.
solutions to problems you didn't know you even had.
Yeah.
Right. So yeah.
How about you, Ricardo, or do you want me to go next?
Go ahead.
Ricardo's going to need a old fashioned in therapy after his, so let's let him work on it.
He's
we
all
ran
locked up. He needs some oil in the old cog.
Another old fashioned, I guess I should say.
We ran a nice little old fashioned happy hour yesterday.
We did.
Yeah.
Scott, I wish you were still around, because we were all hanging out at Ricardo's office, and he was, dude. How many drinks did you make?
I have no idea. I literally lost count.
Yeah, he was working it, and you know what? I had two. So I was like, his being tired is a him problem.
No, it was amazing. It was a good time.
Yeah, it was. It was a really good time.
So besides your drinking problem, Dustin, what did you learn in
Well, let me be clear.
2021?
Because Ricardo was the one making the drinks, I had no problem drinking. It went down easy. So actually, I think we summarized on an episode. I think it was last week, or maybe it was the week before. We cracked out this line. Scott, you weren't here for this, but I said we should have marketing trend T-shirts, and the front should say "Up to my neck and ship." And and the point is, like, you should just be shipping constantly, right? And this for me, this is one of those lessons.
Perfection.
Yes, it's a lesson I know. And you know, this year was a bit of a humbling year, because anyone who's been listening to the podcast for a while knows that I tried to build a CRM. I was very confident in my ability to build a CRM from scratch. And to be fair, like, I showed you guys what we had prototyped, and you guys thought that the concept was really great, and it presented well in Figma, right? The design tool we use to mock it all up. But for those of you who aren't aware, I had development challenges, and ultimately the wheels fell off the bus. And so we're using Follow Up Boss, and it's working for us. It's a good solution. It's not the solution I had wanted for Lighthouse, but it's a good solution, and it's doing the things I really, really needed to do. But if one of the reasons that we got to the point of realizing we needed to pivot, I needed to overcome my hesitancy using an out of the box solution, and I need to get over my own kind of ego that I could build a CRM, was I started forcing the ship, right? I would go back to my developer, and there was always a reason, as you guys remember. Offline, we talked about this plenty. My developer always had a thing he was working on. He would always dive into some back-end code he knew that I didn't know, that I couldn't assess very well. He would rarely show me anything front end that I could assess. Right. And there was always a story. And I don't mean to just pick on developers, but this has been my long experience with developers, is that they will do this. And that's a sure sign. When someone takes you to something you can't really measure because you don't have the tools to measure it, and they spend all their time there, it's a sure sign that they're not getting the job done, in my experience. And this isn't just true for developers. This is true for teammates, in escrow, right? It's like, I have never sat an escrow desk, even though I'm the CEO of an escrow company. And so my escrow team knows that if they really don't want me to probe too hard into something, they'll take me into what I call escrow weeds, right? And they'll start escrow weeding me. But I've gotten to the point now where I recognize where I am, and I'm able to cut through it pretty quickly. And I also know more about escrow than I let on. So
Dustin, is that called escrow planing? They start escrow planing things to you?
They do. They start escrow planing. That's like mansplaining.
Oh, that's awesome.
Escrow splaining to me. And I realized that shipping is such a powerful way to get to the truth. Because as soon as you start saying, hey, we're shipping this thing at this date, if you ship that thing at that date. Shipping is also hugely terrifying to me, because I'm afraid that once it's out in the world, it's just not going to be what I dreamed it was going to be. And I'm afraid other people are going to judge like the entirety of my effort based on my first deployment. And so I feel like I have to have everything perfectly dialed in, and it has to be this sort of like masterful orchestration, right? But that's not how the world works. Like, that's not how I work. It's not how any of you guys work. I don't hardly know anybody that works like that. Sure, maybe somebody will try something out, for the early days, and they'll be like, this is no good. And fine, it might not come back. But a lot of people will stick it out. A lot of people will keep trying it. And the reality is, if you try something out and you feel like it's no good, you might come back at a different point in your life when the product is improved and when your life situation has changed, and you might decide it's good. This happened with me with HelloFresh this year. We had an episode, right, about Ricardo trying HelloFresh, and he didn't like it because for what he was trying to accomplish, he was trying to, shorten his dinner time preparation, and HelloFresh doesn't do that, right? HelloFresh saves you grocery shopping time, but it doesn't shorten your dinner prep time. But for me, what I was looking for was, I didn't want a meal plan and I didn't want to grocery shop, and I just got too busy for those things. And even though I had tried HelloFresh at another point in my life and didn't really connect, because I thought, oh, I can, why do I need to outsource grocery shopping? It's not a big deal for me. I'm at a point in my life now where it just is. I have a toddler. I've got a lot of things going on. My wife has a lot of things going on, and HelloFresh turned out to be huge, and it's gotten better, right?
So we're doing it. Nice little cheat code.
It's totally a cheat code. We've been doing it for, I don't know, 5 months, 6 months now. Like, we've been doing it for a while. We really like it. Anyway, the point is, if
this episode brought to you by
HelloFresh.
HelloFresh.
This is our episode on HelloFresh.
We wish.
Yeah. Ricardo, get on the sponsorship.
That's awesome.
The point is, don't be afraid of shipping. People will forgive a failed first attempt. People will stick it out, and you're going to get better. And you're going to, more importantly, you're going to have something that exists in the world, right? And looking back, I wish I had picked up on that lesson sooner. I have a phone in this office. I have no idea why that phone is connected. This is a studio.
That's awesome.
What? One moment, but I'll be right back.
I didn't even hear the phone.
I didn't either.
I think he's making it up. I think he needed a potty break.
That's amazing. He's wiping a tear.
Yeah. Neither of us even heard the phone. We think you're hallucinating.
You're on mute.
You guys couldn't hear the phone?
No.
Oh, this mic is amazing. Okay, so this is the Audio Technica AT 2020. Go buy it, because it just
no way.
Yeah, it was right there. It's 5 feet from my.
We didn't hear anything.
Wow, we didn't hear a single thing, and I've even got an earbud in, so it's like I have no sound.
That's awesome.
I do have Cozy chewing on a bone behind me, but other than that, so that's interesting. It seems like our lessons were almost the same then, Dustin, because that's almost my experience too. Is we were committed to ship, and we got it out there, and we made the decisions to do what we had to do, and just let it ride for a little while, and just pay attention and see what falls off and what it's going to take to put it back on, and just get that car down the road, and just test drive it and see what happens, and then make decisions. That's awesome. Yes. And speaking of sponsors, we should definitely get some Follow Up Boss sponsorship, because you just gave them some mad love right there.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, thanks to Ricardo for hooking us up.
Yeah.
And Will, who
Ricardo
was
hooks everybody
earlier. Will, who does not work for Title, definitely not helping us out.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
At least he doesn't work for him anymore.
I'm gonna soundbite this clip.
Set it straight to compliance.
Yeah.
Our industry is dumb.
All right, Ricardo, you have 30 minutes to emote on all of the things that you learned in 2021.
Earlier this year, I made a couple of different changes or investments. I got a personal assistant. The first one was, I have the advantage of having written product documentation for some of the earlier startups that I worked at, or even a most recent startup. I literally just wrote product documentation. I created our first community forum for one of our companies. We grew it to like 6,000 members organically. I created a, not an intranet, but like a help desk that literally outlined everything about all 4 of our product lines. So when I got the personal assistant, I had created SOPs and video tutorials literally for everything that I wanted this person to do. And I didn't want to come off overbearing, or I hate being micromanaged. I absolutely detest it. So I didn't want to be that person to my VA, which is why I created all those tutorials and whatnot. And, you know, the first person that I got partnered with wasn't doing anything. And I knew because I wasn't getting pinged when the videos were being watched. So I knew you weren't watching the videos. I knew you weren't reading the documentation, because there's literally no room for error here. I was afraid to speak up and say anything about it until I consulted with, I'm sure, Dustin for sure, and a few other people, and Scott. And I don't even know if you and I talked about it. But I finally brought it up like at the start of week number 3, and I said, hey, this is my tech stack. These are the things that I'm asking my VA to do. Is this outside the scope of their capabilities? And is my tech stack too complicated, or is there something else going on here? And I got instantly matched with somebody else. And I'm forever grateful that like I spoke up, because I feel like most people wouldn't have spoken up if it wasn't for encouragement from some of my mentors and friends like you. I probably wouldn't have spoken up. My VA now is amazing. She has a like, I'm going to figure it out attitude. Even when I don't give her work to do, she's asking like, hey, I know you have a busy travel schedule, but you seem stressed. What can I do to take stuff off your plate? Like, she's constantly being that person, which to me is amazing. But the things that I had to get over was like creating my landing pages. I do them. I'm very specific about how I want them done, and I'm very particular about like certain things. I had to get comfortable with being okay and letting go. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be done. And that's a big, I think that's a big thing. I think we always overthink things. We always overthink, is the copy right? Is the landing page right? Is the design right? And what it is, it's the overthinking. What it really is fear. If I ship this, it's going to look dumb. If I ship this, people are going to critique it. If I ship this, it's going to, like, what if it falls flat?
Well, the funny part, thinking I'm the only one that can do this right.
Or thinking I'm the only one that can do this right. The reality is actually no. This person can do it. And even if they do it like 70 to 80%, at least it's done.
Yes. And
you can always go back and perfect it later if like you really need to, but at least it's done. So for me, that was, I think to me, that was a big one.
Now, let me ask you this real quick, Ricardo. Do you think that the perfection was subjective? Like you had an idea of what perfect needed to look like, but in reality,
the perfection
did not work.
The perfection was just an excuse to procrastinate.
Wow.
The perfection
That's pretty powerful.
Perfection is literally just an excuse to procrastinate. It doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to get done. Yeah. And if you can get to a point in your business where you're willing to admit that about yourself, oh, trust me, it just opens so much. I think that's the realization I came to for myself. Gosh, what was the other one? The other one is part of my role here. My new role here at Follow Up Boss is we've had a busy conference season, like a super busy conference season. I think it was 5 cities in 6 weeks or something like that. And it was shipping different materials to different events, designing different materials for different events, and literally shipping them within a week of one another. That literally gives you 0 time to make decisions, like 0. Could the copy be better? Yes, 100%. Could it be better by 12 noon today? Nope, ship it. That's really uncomfortable if you think about it.
Yep.
I've had to learn to get comfortable with making a decision. And I'm the type of person that kind of procrastinates in making decisions because I can get indecisive. I've had to like rewire my mental state and just ship decisions. Be okay with making that decision because you know what? Now I'm going to have to live with that decision. There's no time to make any changes to it now. But I'm actually really enjoying the person that's forced me to become. Having that constraint has forced me to be okay with making more decisive decisions. I don't think I would have been able to do that or get to that place if it wasn't for the constraint of having that shortened window. But I'm thankful. Like, I feel like now I'm a person that can be decisive, make a decision, and live with it. And I don't feel like I was that person before. And that's a competitive advantage too. I feel like that's a superpower.
I think it's interesting because those two things intersect. They intersect at the point of you need every minute you can have because you have to make rapid decisions.
Mm-hmm.
And so if you're doing tasks that somebody else could easily be doing, that's taking away from your time to be able to write that copy in the expedited timeline that you have to write it in. And so what you're doing when you get the virtual assistant is you're giving yourself just a little bit more room to make your incremental improvements while still rapidly deploying.
Mm-hmm.
And that is a precision machine is what that is. Right. And you need both things happening.
Yep.
You know, and another thing that it is, and a good way to think about this, and this is something that I've been, you know, since I first kind of learned about it, that I've been really proactively trying to practice, is how much of your time are you using to do $1,000 or $5,000 or $10,000 an hour work, right? Because one decision is something that can impact your business, that is going to get eventually get a return on that investment. But what you're describing is that all the things you let go are $15, $20, $25 an hour work. You know, copywriting, building landing pages.
But it's easy to make the excuse and say, "Oh, only I know how to do it right," or "Only I know how to do it well." That's the trap that we all fall into.
Because it's scary to make, you know, big decisions come with big responsibility. And if you make the wrong decision, so there's some fear to it. There's some accountability and responsibility that comes from making bigger decisions. And so you procrastinate making those bigger decisions by getting in the weeds of well, I can't make that big decision now because I'm busy doing all of these things.
Mm-hmm.
As soon as I get these things done, then I'll start making big decisions. You know, I mean, we all do it. It's a human nature kind of thing, but
it's a form of avoidance.
Yeah.
And procrastination.
And as entrepreneurs, you know, we have to cut against that human nature that a lot of us have to, you know, to just feel like we're busy doing something or getting something done. But really, if you want to take your business to the next level, you've got to step back, let everybody else do the small stuff, and you focus on the ship date.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, and the reality is that probably at least 50% of the big decisions in our life are actually just a bunch of small decisions we've made stacked on top of each other.
That's actually very good.
Yeah.
Ricardo, you had also mentioned the fact when you were starting your lessons learned, you'd mentioned the fact that you got a coach.
So
we discussed this in an episode, so I'd love to hear that thought too.
So a while back, I hired a coach, and it was I wanted somebody to sort of hype me up and, you know, keep me on. Sometimes I feel like I teeter-totter. I have moments of high enthusiasm and confidence, and then I have moments where, like, I'm questioning myself or doubting myself.
Mm-hmm.
So the first thing I did is I hired a coach, and I wanted this person to kind of keep me on balance and kind of keep my head straight, keep me motivated, keep me whatever. What I've discovered was I'm more and more growing the confidence to say that I am a unicorn. Like, I think I am a unicorn. Scott tells me all the time, like, and other people tell me all the time. The depth of what I can do is versatile, but sometimes I don't accept that. Mm-hmm. I realized I don't need a coach. I don't need somebody to tell me what to do. I don't need somebody to coach me what to do. I can run circles probably around most. So I ditched the coach because I didn't want the business coach, and I really didn't just need the accountability, and I hired a therapist. And I'm not embarrassed to say I hired a therapist. I actually think that's a competitive advantage too.
Mm-hmm.
And the statement that I made to her, to my therapist was, I'm here in life and I'm here in my business, and I want to get over here. I want to get from point A to just, I want to hockey stick. I want to catapult myself. But to do that, I'm going to stumble and trip over myself. So what I need you to do is I need you to help me see around corners. I need you to help me see my blind spots. I need you to call me on my crap, because we tend to make excuses for ourselves or make things bigger than they are when really they're not that big and a deal. And I need you to call me out on that stuff so that you can keep me pushing forward. And I need you to help me become a better communicator, not just at home and like in business in general, with friends, colleagues, and with my spouse. And I feel like we've done all of those things. She calls me on the stuff that I'm doing wrong, or that I'm misstepping on, or that I'm seeing through a sort of twisted lens, which I think is amazing. And then my therapist helps coach me into like how to phrase conversations better or have different conversations better. We've been meeting for maybe 5 months now. And it's funny because the question I was asked was, how do you feel about yourself? And my response was, I actually like the person that I'm becoming. I feel like I'm more in tune with who I am and how I operate. And so I'm able to make decisions faster or better. And I'm not judgmental about, or I'm not, judgmental is the wrong word. I don't get down about hearing criticisms. Like, they don't faze me anymore. And it's because I'm okay with, like, I'm at peace with who I am and how I'm operating, if that makes sense. So for me, I say that therapy's been a competitive advantage, because it's literally, my therapist helps me get out of my own way. And I think that's a very powerful thing. Too often in business, I feel like we always trip and get in our own way. Look at that doggy.
Cozy.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
She's being annoying. I gotta distract her.
So Ricardo has called me offline. We'll talk, and he'll tell me some story of a conversation he had with his therapist, right? And I have to tell you, he's been doing this for a little while now, and I got so jealous, because I thought, oh my goodness, how amazing would it be to be having those kinds of conversations, to have that person in your life who can call you out on your crap, who can help you see, your blind spots, see around corners. And, I know friends and spouses can do that, but there's something about a therapist who's professionally trained in conversation, in psychosis, in maybe even medicine, so that they can know, if you're taking certain medications, how that might be impacting your world, right? There's something about that that's powerful. A person whose only job is to have lots of conversations that are meaningful, and you get to, spend an hour of your week with that kind of person. And it was, for me, I got to a point where I thought, you know what, I could use this in my life too. And so I actually engaged business coach / therapist. And I this person is both. This person happens to be a serial entrepreneur who went into therapy, got his licenses, but he also has his MBA, comes from a family of entrepreneurs. In other words, he's somebody who I think can speak a lot of my language, which was important to me. He also happened to share my faith background, which was also important to me. And so we're early days. I have nothing to report yet, but I'm hopeful. Like, I'm hopeful that I'll have the experience that Ricardo's been having with his therapist. And I have seen already breakthrough for Ricardo as a result of this. And I think, if you're thinking about it, right? Like in my case, I don't mind telling you, I'm now coming up on my second round of 5 years running the company. And I've noticed that there's a bit of a cycle. And my cycle tends to be that I get really excited about kind of a big project. We work on it, we deploy it, and then I'm pretty tired at the end. And I'm at the end of another cycle. Some big things are happening with the company. I'm very excited about them. And the company's got very strong growth potential. But a lot of that is the result of some work done by me and by my fellow shareholders. And we're at the end of the cycle. And so now I kind of want somebody to be external to me who's professionally trained that can help me think through this stuff. And so I would encourage you, if you're feeling it, take it seriously, and maybe find somebody like this for yourself.
Yeah, I had a similar experience. It wasn't necessarily a therapist, even though I use it as therapy. But it was a mastermind or coaching group, but it's not specific to the industry. It's just specific to how to manage yourself as an entrepreneur. And it's not somebody with an agenda, it's just somebody with experience. And that has been absolutely pivotal in my life. I mean, in the last 2 years, I used to always be one of those people that are like, no, these are my problems, I'll figure them out. And I don't need somebody telling me what I should be doing, and basically all the things that you guys have been saying. And then when I kind of put myself into that vulnerable position where you're talking out loud about your issues and your problems and the way that you're making decisions, and then you're getting feedback from other people that are saying, well, I'm not in your business, but when I found myself in this position, these were the mistakes that I made. And, and having those types of conversations and having some vulnerability, I think is almost the common thread here, is having a little bit of vulnerability and going out there and not being afraid to admit that I could use some direction. Right. I could use some direction. I could use a little bit of help. And listen,
don't get me wrong. That part right there can be totally uncomfortable. 100%.
Oh, if it's not, you're not doing it right.
If it's not, you're not doing it right.
Yeah. You're not being vulnerable if it's not uncomfortable. Right. I mean,
it's 100% allowing yourself to be vulnerable. But if you do that, man, that's literally you getting out of your own way.
It is so much. It is so much. And I also think it's sort of a trailing indicator of a maturity that we get to as entrepreneurs, where it's not, well, that's a difference between an entrepreneur, a solopreneur, and an entrepreneur. Now you can focus on helping other people around you become successful and growing your business and not making it about you. So yeah. I think that's an important ingredient in that that stage of the evolution as we grow as business owners and entrepreneurs.
Yeah. And it's a hard one to acknowledge, because as an entrepreneur, you've been so self-reliant, and you've had so many times where you've had the conversation with yourself, which was, just get up, just do it, just knock it out. Right?
Well, and like Ricardo said, is a lot of us we're all unicorns in our own way. Mm-hmm. There's a small percentage of the of society that decide to. Are you sure? Mine always said I was always told to do it like this. That's a sign everybody always gives me. I don't know what that means.
That's funny.
But I mean, to be in business and in real estate and mortgage like we are, it's a different path. There isn't a playbook. There isn't a rule book. We have a lot more responsibilities, and being an entrepreneur is a lot different than punching a time card. And it comes with a lot of problems, but you got to recognize the very fact that you're in that position makes you a little bit of a unicorn. So it's not really easy to always have these kinds of conversations and have these kinds of reflections with the people around you that aren't in the same situation that you're in. And I really love the fact that both of you guys are talking about personal therapists or therapy that aren't related to business necessarily. Well, Dustin's, your person has business experience, which is amazing if you can find that. He's a unicorn for sure, but just asking for that and making those and making those decisions, though, it's wow. Okay, this is interesting. This doesn't feel like a 2021 in review, but I guess it really does. I mean, when you reflect on it, that's
we talk about a lot of technology, a lot of systems, a lot of strategies. I almost want to ask, like, how much of the stuff that we've talked about have you implemented? So I feel like it related, but not related. I feel like I've gotten in a comfortable space or I've gotten in a good cadence of shipping. I feel like we all have, right? We've gotten a good cadence of shipping.
Yeah, I could do better, but I'm doing better than I was.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like we've all gotten better, and honestly, that's the secret sauce to any of this. If you're wondering why I'm struggling, why wasn't 2021 a better year for me? What the heck can I do to make 2022 a better year? You literally have to do all of the stuff that's uncomfortable and get yourself to a space where you're just shipping more.
Yeah.
And that uncomfort is masked in a lot of different ways.
From the episode that, from the looking back in the previous episodes, this year I tried a VA and didn't work for us, but it worked great for you. It didn't work for us because I had less work than I thought I did. And that was a hard realization for me because I thought, oh my goodness, I got this big idea. Nope, wasn't a big idea. Pretty shallow idea. Didn't work. Right? Fine. Like that hurt. But so we did the VA thing. The CRM thing, I have gotten very serious about it. I mean, because we've talked about it so many times. And man, I got to tell you, I felt like a bit of a fraud for the early episodes of the Marketing Trench because you both have CRMs and you guys use them. And I didn't have a CRM, and we'd have all these episodes. Or where's your database? And I'm like, yeah, guys, where's your database? And I didn't have much of a database, right? I have MailChimp or whatever. And so we've been doing it, and it's been great. It's been very, very enlightening. We're using Follow Up Boss. Ding. Where's my referral code?
Brought to you by?
Yeah, brought to you by Follow Up Boss. We're using Follow Up Boss. We're using Zapier. It's hard. Like we're still putting things in place. We've signed up for a handwritten account and we haven't used it yet, but we plan to. We're still inputting some final things on the other. We're still figuring out some data import and other things like that. But we've got handwritten ready to go. And we got some bigger plans for 2022. I would say though that something else. When I've looked back over our tool set, man, we've talked about a lot of really great tools, but not all of them really just made sense for what we do as escrow and what our needs are. And so we gave I gave myself permission not to pursue some of those things. Right.
Yeah. And we started, when we started this podcast, it was really about, and the reason why we called it the Trench is because a lot of these conversations are stuff that we have conversations about. We're either thinking about it in our own business or we're talking to, our peers about these issues and these challenges. And, I think if I go back and look at all of the episodes, it really is just sort of a reflection of the kind of the internal dialogue that we're always kind of having about things. Sometimes it veers off into different areas, but it's always something about, automation or amplification or organization or time management. It's all these conversations around these different aspects of what we encounter every day in our business. And we're exploring different tools and having conversations with different people with expertise in those areas. And hopefully those conversations are helping, the 5 to 7 people that watch our podcast. and if at least one of them implemented one thing and got something out of it, I think we could, feel good about that. But yeah, no, I've implemented a few things and I've learned a lot. And another thing that I've learned is is by sometimes when talking things out loud, and I don't know if you guys noticed this, but this just happened to me like last week. I thought I had something all figured out and I started explaining it to somebody. And as I was saying it out loud, because I'm sitting there in my head and I'm on my notepad and, my remarkable pad, and I'm sitting there making all my notes and I'm like, nailed it, right? Got this figured out. This is the perfect, this is the, I just, architected the Sistine Chapel on my notepad. And then as soon as I started talking about it and trying to explain it to somebody, I was like, yeah, that doesn't make sense at all. I'm going at this from a completely, from a completely wrong direction. I'm in the right ballpark, but I'm not in the right seat, not even close. So, this whole project for me, between us it has been therapy, quite frankly, because, this stuff isn't scripted out. We're having improvisational conversations about things that we're thinking about and different perspectives. And, I hope people pull that away from what we do, is hearing our different perspectives and our different approaches to things, having these conversations. The specifics and the details I don't think are as important as the dynamic of looking at different ideas from different directions. Right. And talking it out loud and discussing it in real time. And if you can replicate that on your team or within your peers or within your marketing groups or with your therapist, I think there's a lot of value to that. There's a lot of good that can come out of that. So, yeah. So that's all I got.
Ricardo, have you implemented anything that, you use all this stuff.
I'm a tinkerer, so like I really do use a lot of, if not all of this stuff, right? Yeah. The one thing that I'm probably guilty of not using more, I play in Convertkit, so my wheelhouse is Convertkit. This year has been about setting up a lot of funnels internally for us, but I need to get better about managing our data, tracking our data, even here internally at Follow Boss. Because what I'm in charge of is like running webinars, so it's less one-to-one, it's really one-to-many. The biggest thing that I'm excited about implementing, because it's not done in our industry, is personalization. So on our webinar landing pages now, it says, help me personalize your experience. Tell me a little bit more about who you are. So it'll ask you for your first name, last name, phone number, but then it says, I'm a solo agent, or I'm a small team between 1 and 3 agents, or I'm a growing team, 3 to 10 agents, or I'm a large enterprise, so 10 agents or more. And now I have this data set that basically tells me like who I'm talking to, the demographic profile of who I'm talking to. Tying that up in a bow is disseminating that information to like our sales team, so that when we have those conversations with people, we can now shower them with relevant case studies. I'm not going to show a solo agent a case study about how this team over here crushed it. I'm going to show them a case study of how other solo agents are crushing it with their content.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So the other question that I was asking was like, are you a current Follow Boss customer, or your previous customer, or never heard about Follow Boss, tell me more? But I feel like the data that I was getting there wasn't very accurate. And that's fine. And at least I have that initial data set of the demographic profile of your team. And I feel like that's barely touching the surface of what you're able to do in terms of like personalizing the experience. The next iteration of that is creating different onboarding sequences and messaging for how you talk to those solos, how you talk to those teams, and how do you talk to those operations, basically your operations people, the operations manager who runs an office of 30 teams or 50 or 100 or 300. That's what I'm geeking out on and most excited about.
Yeah, and that's cool stuff for sure. That is cool stuff. I want to take the last few minutes here and pivot to a lightning round here of maybe some wins, losses, because the reality is it's important to acknowledge your losses, but also celebrate your wins. And we don't want to communicate to anybody here that we are without loss. In fact, losses are are a necessary and important part of winning. So I'll start. I would say, and some of this is going to be overlap with, the lessons learned. But for me, the loss was the dream CRM and having to take that hard hit of promising pretty magical stuff to my team and then not being able to deliver. That was a loss. That one hurt. I felt like I felt like an idiot. But the win was turning around, recovering from that, recognizing that I had the loss, and reaching out to Ricardo and some other people and saying, hey, what solution sets do I have? And then ultimately pivoting to Follow Up Boss. And then I would say another loss win for me was, I had to acknowledge earlier this year that I'm just not a great sales team leader, for a whole bunch of reasons. Maybe we can get into on another. No, I'm not. But I did learn, and this is the win. I've got a good sales team, and I started just getting out of their way, right? Just, hey, what do you need? What can I do to support you? I didn't need to be the rah guy. You guys can do it. I'm look, there's a place for that for sure. And I know plenty of sales reps who have worked at companies and they really, really appreciate that. I'm just not that guy. I'm more the guy that, you're awesome. Go do your thing. And if you need me to block and tackle and remove obstacles, let me know. And, if you don't have that internal drive, that's fine. Not everyone does, but you're just not going to be a great fit for Lighthouse. Right. So a couple of wins were just acknowledging that about myself and then bringing on some unconventional hires. Ricardo introduced me to Adam Greer, who we had on a previous episode here recently. And, I'd say hiring him was a win. Hiring a sales rep that we have named Rick Nelson was a win. He's a really great guy, comes from the from personal finance background, and he's been tremendous. I would say that my sales rep that I brought on a couple of years ago, who got kicked in the shorts with COVID, right? He really persevered. And this year, John Conti really came up with some creative and out of the box ideas. I got out of his way, tried to enable him where I could. And he's really killing it. So, those are wins, right? Like just acknowledging that, getting out of my own way, getting out of my team's way and supporting them. So that's a couple for me.
Nice. Well, I think I kind of addressed some of my wins and losses, and I guess to just summarize it, some of the wins were making the decisions to just ship, and the losses, the losses were having the patience to let things play out, to measure the results, to pay attention to the trends. The patience was a big thing that I really, really struggled with. Was just giving it time to see what was working and what wasn't working. And that was very, very emotionally difficult for me. And I think to some extent, I kind of got into this sort of groove where I started to see the patterns, but I just kept letting it go. And it really created a lot of anxiety in me. And I kind of took a back seat, and I wasn't being proactive with stuff because I just wanted to see how it was going to play out. But then it kind of culminated all in the observation and the decision to make some major changes in the background that I thought were going to make improvements. And again, I stumbled really bad on communicating that with my team. And so I went from a position of being very proactive and aggressive and saying, we're going to do this, to basically just sitting back and observing for quite a few months. And then jumping back in and saying, okay, that didn't work, we're going to do all of this. And then having to deal with how that worked. And that was a really interesting up and down. It was a big learning experience for me. And, but I feel like, and none of it was comfortable. Like none of it was, I got this win, I got this loss, I got this win. You always just kind of feel like you're going by the seat of your pants. But you're shipping and you're plugging holes as you go along, and you're setting sails, when the wind is blowing, and I don't know very many shipping metaphors, but yeah, that was
you still own the Rising Tide Lifts All boats, and I think that one's amazing. So
I certainly don't own it, but I do use it a lot. Yeah.
How about you, Ricardo? We got 2 more minutes.
I could get better at personal follow-up, individual follow-up. I feel like I dropped the ball there at times. I'm thankful for people's grace.
But the wins, losses. So you would say that losses this year, you didn't hit your marks on the follow-up?
Yeah, I feel like that's right now that's a little bit of a weakness. But it's hard to keep up at times. I feel like I'm shipping exceedingly well in these other areas.
I'm going to drop a win in your life because I think this one is really obvious to Scott and I, but you were really struggling. I think you had sort of hit a ceiling where you were prior, and you have found a role that just really leans into all of your strengths. Not to say anything bad about your previous company. They were good. They were a great company, good people.
Yeah.
But the role that you had there didn't play to your strengths as much as the one that you have now. And I think Scott and I, Scott, correct me if I'm wrong, but we've both seen you light up and just go to another level, and it's been awesome to watch.
Yeah, it's shackles are off. To be
honest. Like Dustin was referring to earlier, is you were into a position where the leadership recognized that they should get out of your way and let you shine and let you do what you need to do. And for the record, Ricardo, I think you're full of shit all the time. So there's that.
That's amazing.
That's a great way to wrap this up.
Great way to wrap it up.
So, hey, we would love to hear your wins, losses. Post them in the comments. We'll keep an eye out, respond. But, hopefully this was helpful to you this year in review, this review of the wins, losses. As you can see, like we're working through stuff. Like, I don't know how we present to you guys when you listen to these podcasts or when you watch these live streams. And by the way, if you're watching the live stream, please like and subscribe to this video. And if you're only listening, please go to YouTube, find us, subscribe to our channel. We really would love to build our subscriber base. I don't know how we present to you guys, but I got to tell you, like, we're real. We make mistakes. We make messes. But we're also trying our best. And that's why we're here, right? We want to talk to you about what gets us on fire, what we're doing, what's working, what's not working. Hopefully it helps you learn some lessons faster than we learn them. Maybe you don't make the same mistakes. Maybe it saves you some money, some time, some heartache. So, I hope you understand, like this isn't like the perfectly manicured marketing podcast. This is the trench. We're getting dirty. And so hopefully you heard that tonight. Guys, it's been fun talking with you both again after so many weeks of us being separated for various reasons.
Yes.
If you want to check out more of Scott Shea, you can find him over at findmywayhome.com. Some amazing articles. Also, if you're a lender, you should really check out the project that he's doing because it is insane. Details are over at findmywayhome.com. And you can also email him if you want to learn more details. Ricardo Bueno, ricardobueno.com is where you can find his other podcast, where you can find articles he's publishing. He has a great newsletter you can subscribe to. So go do that kind of stuff. He's always talking to interesting people doing really interesting stuff. And Follow Up Boss is a great company. If you're looking for a CRM solution, strongly encourage you to check out Follow Up Boss. Finally, Lighthouse Escrow is where you can find me and my amazing team who I get out of the way of. That is my job here as the CEO, is just get out of the way, let the amazing people do their amazing work. If you're wondering what your closing costs will be, if you're thinking about selling a home or buying a home in California, you can use our free closing cost estimator on the front page of our website. Go down a couple scrolls, you will see it. Plug in your figures, see how much cash you're going to walk away with, see how much you're going to pay in closing costs. It can help you to estimate how much of a down payment you have when you buy your next overpriced, but still cheaper than it's going to be home. So that's it for us. Guys, it's been great. Until next time, this has been the Marketing Trench.
Yeah.